Good morning, everyone. It is me, Lisa, also known as the AlkaliYogi. This morning, I'm going live on both YouTube as well as Instagram. It's my first time actually going live on Instagram, and it's because many of you don't know who I am and who has been posting on this page, so this is my introduction to you. Those of you that have been with me on this journey on YouTube already know a bit about me. I am a Czech holistic practitioner. I'm licensed in corrective exercise coaching as well as holistic lifestyle habits and modifications, behavioral modifications. So I've started this new series, and that's primarily because, good morning, everyone. Good to see you, 48, Teen Z, everyone else that's coming in. So what I've started to do, is this decoding, if you will, of some of the phenomenal holistic books and resources that I have access to. Times have been difficult for the last 2.5, 3 years, and not everyone, quite frankly, has the resources to get sort of the books maybe necessary to help fuel your own healing and nurturing back to health and wellness. So because we're in a time, good morning, everyone, it's so good to see you all. Because we're at a time where clickbait seems to take precedence over actual knowledge and information. And if you break that word down, information, it's literally bringing form back in, right? So it's making you whole again. So rather than living off of memes or clickbait titles that tell you you should avoid fats for this, or you can create your six-pack in a gym doing this, et cetera, you should be doing power flow for this reason. I wanted to get back into giving you the meat of what it is to really be healthy and empowering yourself to be your own shaman, healer, et cetera, because frankly, I don't see anything that's more pertinent in these times. Again, my job is just to empower you and to help you remember how to become whole once again. This is not about agendas and narratives and political theories. This is truly about how can you be well enough to become a critically informed thinker once again, to restore your fertility, to restore your easefulness, to restore your ability to go from your perhaps overly sympathetic state back into a parasympathetic state. All of these reasons are why I come to you here as a licensed holistic practitioner to, again, help you do for yourself. It's about learning how to cope, how to self-soothe, how to manage in the times that we're living in, which are very challenging. And also, I just want to say shout out to all of you that are still here on this planet going through this experience with all of us, because this is just a reminder that what you're going through, you were designed to go through, meaning you are built for this. So you already have all of the tools, if you will. You have all of the capabilities, I'll say, to get through this time that we're living in by virtue of the fact that you're in this crazy time that we're living in, right? So you know that you can move through this. This is, as we know, truly a type of spiritual warfare. But again, you are never given more than you can handle. You are never given more than you can sustain. So trust in your one source, whomever you believe that to be, whether you call him or her Allah, the universe, one source, great spirit. Know that you are designed for this and you already have the ability to do this. And I know this to be true and sound right knowledge because frankly, your ancestors have lived through trying times as well. And they are what run and who run through your veins. Please remember that. They are already there. So perhaps you have forgotten the tools. Thanks, guys. Appreciate Coach Carly Boyle, 48 Teensy. Appreciate all of you. Just remember that you already have the tools to do this. And so my job is really just to help you remember. So there's information, but there's also remembering, again, helping you to come back to wholeness. Because if you have forgotten what your ancestors were able to survive, and make it through, it's only because of what we've been exposed to in terms of pollution in our water, in the air, in the food, in the soil, et cetera, et cetera. My job is to help you cleanse some of that, get some of that out of your system, help you to return to a state where you can hear intuition, whether it be, again, from whomever you pray to, the one source, Allah, whomever, she, known as Mother Nature. You have all of the tools and abilities to get through this and come out not only surviving, but thriving. 100% you can be thriving during this time. So let's help you. Let's help all of us really and truly remember. Remember, when you break that word down, remember, right? It's coming back together. It's putting the pieces back together. That's all we're doing here. You already have the ability to do this. All I'm helping you to do is just bring it back to the forefront. If it's back here, we're going to bring it up here. So if you've missed the first 4 parts of the book that I'm currently decoding, which is actually by none other than Paul Chek, who owns the Chek Institute. That's who I have trained with and am certified and licensed with as a holistic practitioner, and exercise coach. So his first book, if I'm not mistaken, is this one right here, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. And again, not everyone has the ability, due to this massive transfer of wealth that we are currently living in, to procure all of the resources that some of us have and some of us don't have. So this is me just sharing and helping to decode and break down some myths so that, again, you can get back to making informed decisions based on sound, right knowledge, and not based on whatever you are hearing out there in the mainstream, which we know has been very curated. So if you've missed the first 4 parts, I'm currently in the nutrition phase of decoding this book. Please go back to my YouTube channel, which is AlkaliYogi on YouTube, and you can see the first 4 parts there. Today, I'm picking up with fats and oils. The parts that you have missed thus far are, how to procure great protein, i.e. meat products and animal products, as well as seafood, the importance of avoiding pasteurized dairy. So we're not saying that we're against dairy. Absolutely not. Everything has a purpose and a time. But things that come from nature should be as unaltered as possible when coming from nature. And truthfully, we should only be consuming things that come from nature. So dairy being one of those things. If you're going to be consuming dairy, that is entirely your choice. If you're not sure whether or not you should be consuming dairy, reach out to me. We could talk about ways that you could test whether or not you have an intolerance to dairy. But certainly, if you are going to be consuming dairy, it needs to be raw. It needs to be unpasteurized. Vegetables and fruit, we've talked about the procurement of that and the importance of finding organic, and how the British Soil Association, over a 25-year study, has already proven that organic produce and fruits and vegetables are in fact more nutritionally dense and better for you with a longer life. So the people that are perpetuating these lies that conventional is the same as organic are not on your team of health and wellness. So know that, tune into that, and go with what you know to be intuitively right. All of these things, again, have been broken down in the previous segments that I've done. Today, I want to move on with fats and oils, because especially in the West, we have been told to avoid fats. But fats are what got us here. Please understand that. And I use that term intentionally, not understand. There's a lot of trickery in the English language specifically. I'm not saying there isn't trickery in other languages, but pay attention to the English language. It is really, really fascinating. Why would you want to understand? You need to overstand something to really comprehend it, or you need to understand it. So fats are essential. They are literally what build you, okay? And if you look at North Americans, generally speaking, towards Canadians and Americans, not so much Mexico when I say North America, even though I'm aware that Mexico is in fact a part of North America, is that we are far sicker over here than they are in other countries, i.e. Europe, where they are not afraid to consume whole milk, raw butter, fatty meats, gamey meats, etc. Again, if you look at the numbers prove that those of us over here that have been trying to avoid diets because of fear of becoming obese, etc., have only made ourselves sicker. Our ancestors did not get us to this point, and we must thank the ancestors, because we are only here due to them and their sacrifices, and also their wisdom and their ability to circumvent, whether it be narratives or propaganda or lions in the kingdom, right? in the animal forest, or sorry, in the animal kingdom, that is by consuming fats. That's where you get your energy. That's what builds your cells, right? So the fact that we've been told to avoid fat for as long as we have, and it's been several decades now, the proof again is in the numbers and the fact that many people over here are not nearly as healthy as other societies that are not trying to avoid fats and healthy oils. So again, breaking this down, fats and oils are essential to optimal health. They are important building blocks for the cells of your body as well as for key hormones. Pay attention if you are having serious problems with your adrenals or your hormones, this applies to you. You want to be consuming quality fats. Just as all foods, you must consume high quality fats and oils for your body to effectively use them. If you're not familiar with different types of fats, we can get into that again. Reach out to me or put it in the comment section, and I'll do my best to answer your questions. Now, fats to avoid. Many processed foods, even those touted as healthy, are in fact laden with trans fatty acids, also known as TFAs. Structurally, trans fatty acids are closer to plastic than they are to fat. So we can fool your mind, right, with all the propaganda and all the seduction that takes place in the psychology of marketing. We can definitely fool your ego into thinking these are quote unquote healthy fats. But these fats that come in the form of processed, cellophane, packaged foods, these are more similar to plastic than they are to fats that you would find out in nature. TFA consumption, which is again trans fatty acids, have been linked to heart disease and elevated cholesterol levels. TFAs are also thought to impair lipoprotein receptors in cells, impairing the body's ability to process low-density cholesterol, also known as LDL, increasing the rate of synthesis and eventually elevating LDL levels found in the blood. This is generally considered to be unhealthy. Upon discovering elevated total cholesterol and elevated LDL levels, doctors often tell people to restrict animal fats, butter, i.e. butter, cheese, eggs, to eat a low-fat diet, high in grains, right, which is, for most of us, this translates into gluten, and vegetables. So we're encouraged to eat low-fat diets that are high in grains and vegetables, and to replace butter with margarine. Margarine, again, also being closer, as far as our body knows, closer to plastic than it is to anything coming from nature. This is how our body processes margarine, is it doesn't even recognize it as something that comes from nature. Remember, the mind and the ego can be fooled, the body cannot. So unfortunately, this is just making our problems worse and our health is deteriorating. Margarine is a vegetable-based oil product designed to compete with butter in the marketplace. It's notorious for high levels of trans fatty acids, which, as I've just defined to you, is considered to be plastic as far as the body is concerned. Okay, so when you are consuming margarine, know that you are telling your body, or that you are putting into your body what your body is presuming is plastic. And what kind of nutritional value is it going to get from plastic? Nothing. You know, I see a question from 48teensy. That's an absolute yes. You need to get in touch with a holistic health style coach. If it's not me, a Czech certified coach, I would recommend another Czech certified coach to you, just because the level of training that we get is very, very comprehensive, and it extends far beyond just nutrition and hydration. We look at the whole entire picture, which includes movement, breath, thoughts, etc. So absolutely 48teensy. All right, getting back to this. In an 8-year Harvard Medical School study of 85,000 women, margarine was linked to heart disease. Dr. Mary Enig, a world-renowned expert on dietary fats, analyzed the TFA content of some 600 foods. She noted that Americans eat between 11 and 28 grams of TFAs a day, or 1/5 of their total intake of fat. This is lots of plastic for your body to have to endure. Essential fats. So those are considered, the acronym for essential fats are EFAs, essential fatty acids. These are the fats that our bodies are unable to manufacture. We must therefore acquire them from dietary sources. These fats fall into two groups, known as omega-3 and omega-6 EFAs. Omega-6 EFAs are readily available in grain products, meats, and many commonly used cooking oils such as corn, safflower, and sunflower. Omega-3 EFAs are found in leafy greens, vegetables, and oily fish, and comparatively small quantities are available in walnuts, eggs, and animal meats. Again, the ideal ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids is 1:4. Pay attention. The ideal ratio of omega-3s to omega-6 fatty acids is 1:4. So you want 4 times as many omega-6 present in your diet, EFAs, as you would have omega-3s. Omega-3 fatty acids are vital to the development of a child's brain and the nervous system, and for the maintenance and repair of the adult brain and nervous system. Studies in which mice were timed through a maze showed that eating a diet that was low in omega-3 fatty acids, also known as the American diet, in the wellness world, this is actually known as the SAD diet, SAD American diet. There were basically, this led to a dumbing down effect when compared to those fed an adequate amount of omega-3s. Wow, that is quite startling. A dumbing down effect. While there are a number of behavioral and learning disorders associated with a lack of omega-3 fatty acids in the diet, or an imbalance between omega-3 and omega-6, EFAs currently recognized disorders include the following: heart attacks, stroke, cancer, obesity, insulin resistance, diabetes, asthma, arthritis, lupus, depression, even amongst children, schizophrenia, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, postpartum depression, Alzheimer's disease, chronic inflammatory disorders, and reduced cellular detoxification. So my question would be, is there anyone on this live right now that doesn't have one of these symptoms, or doesn't know of at least 3 people that have one or more of these symptoms, right? So you're seeing the importance of getting your essential fatty acids. Any questions? Excuse me. Okay, in that case, we will carry on. Now it's getting really good. Excuse me. This is the downside to going live. When you get a coughing fit, you must take a moment. Whew. All right. So to continue on, the saturated fat myth. This one is really important because, as you can see, this country, United States and Canada, arguably, or statistically, I suppose we can say, have the most obese population in the world. And a lot of that has to do with our understanding, and I use that term again purposefully, of saturated fat, and what that means is because we're not overstanding it. So I'm going to break this down for you all. Politically correct nutrition means that the government would have you eat, or what the typical college-educated dietitian would have you eat, is an assumption that we should reduce our intake of fats, right? And I've already mentioned this to you all. Particularly saturated fats from animal sources. Fats from animal sources also contain cholesterol, presented in the twin villain of the civilized diet. Although hydrogenation of fats began in 1912, coronary heart disease was rare in America before 1920. So rare that when a young internist named Paul Dudley White introduced the German electrocardiograph to his colleagues at Harvard University, they advised him to concentrate on a more profitable branch of medicine. The new machine revealed the presence of arterial blockages, thus permitting early diagnosis of coronary heart disease. But in those days, clogged arteries were a medical rarity, and White had to search for patients who would actually benefit from this new technology. During the next 40 years, however, the incidence of coronary heart disease rose dramatically, so much so that by the mid-50s, heart disease was the leading cause of death amongst Americans. Today, heart disease causes at least 40% of all deaths in the US. If, as we have been told, heart disease results from the consumption of saturated fats, one would expect to find a corresponding increase in the animal fat in the American diet, when actually the reverse is true. During the 60-year period from 1910 to 1970, the proportion of traditional animal fat in the American diet declined from 83% to 62%, and butter consumption plummeted from 18 pounds per person per year to only 4. During the past 80 years, dietary cholesterol intake has increased by only 1%. During the same period, the percentage of dietary vegetable oils in the form of margarine, shortening, and refined oils increased about 400, whilst the consumption of sugar and processed foods increased about 60%. So if we're looking at the numbers, and the numbers do not lie, what this is telling us is that it is the correlation of heart disease being now prevalent and making up 40% of deaths in the United States every single year has less to do with the consumption of sugar and processed food, which has gone up by 60%. Granted, this is a significant amount. But what you're seeing is that it is the reduction in the American diet of healthy saturated fats that has actually created, or that rather has a correlating relationship to the amount of coronary and heart disease now that are taking out Americans year by year. In simplified terms, you are better suited to increase, at the very least, your intake of quality saturated fats, even if at this current time and place, you are not reducing the amount of sugar and processed food intake, right? So that's one small step that you can make today. If you are still addicted to sugar and you are not able to come off of that just yet, your first step can at least be an initiation in you increasing your intake of saturated fats and bringing that into your body to help reduce the amount, to help you reduce rather your chances of developing coronary heart disease over time, which again, as we now know, is the #1 killer in the United States. Excuse me. The much maligned saturated fats, which Americans are trying to avoid, are not the cause of modern diseases. If they were, and if the saturated fat of cholesterol, if the saturated fat or cholesterol myth were in fact true, then none of us would be alive today, because saturated fat was the primary energy source for most of our ancestors. Studies of North American Indians, Eskimos, and other tribes suggest that as much as 80% of their daily caloric intake was from fat, most of which was saturated animal fat. To go off on a slight tangent, this is the book I'm thinking about decoding next. If you all are interested, is this fascinating book that I'm also reading now simultaneously, called How to Cure Tooth Decay, Help Prevent Cavities with Nutrition. And what Dr. Weston A. Price found, who was a phenomenal holistic dentist, is that all primitive and native indigenous populations, if you will, that had healthy oral function, all ate a considerable amount of saturated fat. Animal fats were a part of their nutrition that helped to secure their ability to completely avoid cavities and even reverse cavities and restore enamel. So again, if any of you all are interested after we finished decoding Paul Chek's How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, we can move on to this book. But I tell you, I have many, many books that we can decode together. I just need you all to tell me what you're interested in next. So, checkpoints for healthy fat consumption are the following. Number 1, good sources of quality fat include the following. Take notes, please. Olive oil, coconut oil, butter that is raw and unpasteurized and comes from an organic source, palm oil, ghee, which is clarified butter, which is especially good if you are allergic to casein, which is the protein in dairy, organic grass-fed animal fats, i.e. lard and tallow, fish oil. Be careful of the source. Again, you want fishes that have been fresh caught, not farmed. If you have a gluten intolerance, listen, I'm giving you guys all the codes Literally, I'm giving you guys all the codes, yeah? If you're consuming farmed fish, please know that if you have a gluten intolerance, you are likely to find issue with the fish, with farmed fish, because farmed fish, not unlike cows and other animal and gamey meats that are not allowed to eat grass or whatever they naturally would eat, are forced to eat grains and corn and sometimes even wood debris like pulp in order to just fatten up. So if you have a gluten intolerance, which most people do, you do want to avoid farmed fish, because again, they have been fed grains. So what you're going to do is get your wheat through them. And you don't want to be doing that. That's not why you're procuring or in search of quality fish now, is it? Also, seeds, especially flax seeds, avocados, and nuts. Nuts, again, giving you the codes, guys, for free 99 today. Your nuts have to be unroasted. Once you roast them, you are killing off the enzymes. The enzymes are literally what help you to digest your nuts. So if they have been roasted, you're not getting any nutritional value, nor are you helping your body to digest the nuts. And soak your nuts. Of course, it also does not need to be said, but I will repeat this one more time. They should be organic. Your second thing to do, your second point, always choose organic foods for safe fats. Remember, many industrial chemicals and commercial farming chemicals are fat soluble and are stored in the fats of animal, fowl, fish, and plants, which means that when you consume them, they get stored into your fat. And it is quite a journey to then have to detoxify yourself from these industrial chemicals. Number 3, fats to avoid: trans fatty acids, hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils, vegetable oils, and vegetable oils. The high temperatures used to produce such oils will destroy the nutrients in the oils. Fats from conventionally raised animals or fish should also be avoided because, again, if they weren't raised organically or humanely, then you're only going to bring in whatever energy that they've been subjected to. Beyond energy, you're bringing in whatever toxins they've been forced to consume or be exposed to. 1 + 1 always equals 2, even at a time when they're clearly trying to tell us that 1 + 1 = 5. When purchasing EFA supplements, which are essential fatty acid supplements, contact the manufacturer to determine the carrier oil, and if it isn't listed, especially if it's not listed on the label. Soy oil is commonly used because it is cheap, okay? You wouldn't put cheap oil or petroleum, would you, in your Mercedes or in your Maybach or in your Rolls Royce? You are more valuable than any of these things. Please remember that. If you aspire to own any of this stuff, you're going to want to take care of it, but you already have a vessel which is unique, which cannot be duplicated or replicated, which is your only home, which you will inhabit for the duration of your time on this planet Earth. That is to say, it doesn't matter if you were born in Thailand and then grew up in England and then decided to retire in Brazil. Your address can change 1,000 times throughout your life. The one address that stays permanent with you, or that is with you from the day that you're born till the day that you transition, is this right here, is your vessel. Please begin to look at it this way if you're not already doing so. Because again, it doesn't make sense that you would invest top quality products to maintain a sports vehicle, a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, any of these things, when these vessels don't determine how you feel. They don't determine how much energy you have. They don't determine your quality of life, your ability to reproduce, right? So it's time to, again, wake up, grow up, show up, and clean up, guys, because the onus is on us. We already know that the people that are quote unquote leading us have been bought and paid for, quite literally. Thank you, 4018. I appreciate the love and support. Remember, guys, you can reach out to me and send out comments, whether you're following this live on YouTube or on Instagram. You can also reach out to me via direct message, as you know, on Instagram, or you can email me. My website is linked in the bio. So whatever you need and however I can help, let's work. This is a collaboration. We need to lean on each other. Frankly, I'm going to need resources from you as well. So this is definitely not a dialogue. It is meant to be a conversation that we hold together. All right, back to these points. So when purchasing, this is point number 4, when purchasing EFA supplements, make sure again that you're not dealing with soy because it is commonly used, because it is cheap. Carrier oils are often rancid and draw the antioxidant qualities from the good oil that's in the capsule. So basically, you're nulling any good effect. So you're paying good money for for essential fatty acids. Excuse me, avoid trans fatty, but get yourself some good essential fatty acid. And you are going to negate all of that good stuff because, you know, manufacturers are going to make things cheaply when they can get away with it. This, incidentally, is known as food fraud. No one else is going to look out for you. So it's your job to find out, speak to this manufacturer, and learn about how it is that they make these products. If you care about your pet, if you care about your, BMW, hopefully you care about your body as well. When you open a new bottle of an EFA supplement, bite one capsule open to taste and smell the oil. You would be amazed how often brand new bottles contain a batch of rancid oils. Point number 5, avoid eating roasted nuts. I already went into this. See, I'm giving you guys all the codes. Because the roasting process causes the fats and oils to go rancid, increasing the free radical damage in your body. In other words, they make you age faster. All right, so I didn't quite cover that point, but I did tell you that your body would not be able to digest nuts that have been unsoaked and that have been roasted because, again, you've killed off the enzymes. Without the enzymes, you have none of the nutritional benefits. And if you care about aging, again, you're going to want to procure quality foods. Number 6, avoid non-organic dairy products. In many cases, milk is loaded with the same sort of fat-soluble chemicals that you find in meats. Use the resources in this book to see if you can have raw butter, raw cream, and milk shipped to you. And if you can't get raw and you can't find organic, avoid altogether. There is actually a website that I can refer you all to see if wherever you are, you have access to raw butter, clean eggs, and raw dairy. And that website is, stand by. Now, in many states, this is illegal. So just know that you are making a choice. Where is that site? All right, guys, go to the Weston A. Price Foundation, okay? I don't remember the exact www address, but go, if you can find it on Google, I'm not sure if it's still on Google, look for the Weston A. Price Foundation. Weston A. Price is the dentist I told you about, the holistic dentist. He's not the author of that book, but he's quoted throughout that book. Weston A. Price has a resource where you may or may not be able to procure raw, organic, grass-fed milk and other animal products. One of the ways to circumvent getting your hands on raw organic milk that's been unpasteurized, I should say that's not been pasteurized, is sometimes, if you're in a state where it's illegal, is to actually buy shares of that cow. Because now you're not a consumer, you're a part owner. Again, giving you all the codes, right, to help you empower yourself. You see, my job, yeah, unfortunately, in some places it is illegal to buy, some states, not all states, which is incidentally, which is ironic because, here I'm about to go on a tangent, Louis Pasteur himself, who is the one that initially came up with this idea of, heating dairy to the point where you would kill all of the enzymes in order to kill any bad bacteria. Towards the end of his life, also came around and said, pasteurization is actually not ideal because you're killing the good and the bad. And the amount of bad that was found in dairy was so minuscule and so rare, especially if the cows were raised humanely. They were allowed to be grass-fed and roam, etc., that there was really no reason to take such drastic measures, such as always overheat and basically kill off any benefits that dairy has. Some states have come around now and seen that, some people really do want access to raw. And so they have removed any legal barriers, but some states have still these sort of, old sort of practices in place. So there are different ways to circumvent. Again, just make your way over to Weston A. Price. And if you can't find the Weston A. Price Foundation on Google, which would not be alarming, quite frankly, get onto another search engine, one that is still able to actually give you information in terms of holistic health and empowering you again. I personally use Brave, but I'm open to other browsers. If you know of them, please share them with me. Again, this is us exchanging information, right? This is not meant to be me going off on a monologue. You have resources that I'm sure I need, and I have resources that I'm sure you need as well. So let's be tribal, let's be community, let's be village, and share in these resources so that we can rise up and protect ourselves and protect those that we care for. And most importantly, just remember that it's a fallacy to think that any state or government or any corporation has your best interest at heart, and that is going to do what's best for you. Hopefully you have seen over the last 2.5 years that your health is not anyone's priority. It is only yours. All right. Number 7, avoid any and all deep fried foods unless you prepare them yourself and you've used, i.e. lard, coconut, or palm oil. And even then, frying them and deep frying them should be kept to a minimum. So I'm actually going to disagree with this particular point. I would say go ahead with the lard. I would say do not use the coconut and palm oil. I would switch those out actually for avocado and grapeseed oil. I am a big Sabian. I'm not just certified with the Czech Institute. I've had the pleasure of going to Usha, Dr. Sadie's village, more than once. And I have seen this to be true, that alkaline nutrition is definitively one of the quickest ways to restore your health or to maintain your health. I'm not saying that you need to be alkaline 100% of the time, because that would mean that you need to be vegan. I'm also not saying that the alkaline way is the way for everybody. You have bio-individuality, which is why beyond just my, studies of Dr. Sebi and his ability to reverse disease, including AIDS, I'm going to post a trailer later on today on this page, on the Instagram page. That was a documentary actually proving how Dr. Sebi has actually reversed AIDS and HIV in dozens and dozens and dozens of patients. And this documentary was something that Nipsey Hussle, may he rest in peace. Oh, look at that. I'm actually repping for Marathon and Nipsey today. Was supposed to come out with Nipsey Hussle. Not surprisingly, they took him out. Nick Cannon stepped in to complete this documentary, has been holding on to it. I believe it was completed in 2020. He initially dropped the trailer in the summer of 2020, and he has not followed up with that trailer. He said it would be coming out, but the film has not come out. He has not dropped it. So I'm going to drop that trailer later on my page today, because I want all of us to remind Nick Cannon that if he has allowed himself to be bought and paid for by Big Pharma, and that is his reason for not dropping this documentary, proving Dr. Sebi had successfully reversed many diseases, including herpes, lupus, diabetes, and yes, HIV and AIDS, then, we need to apply that pressure, because the word needs to get out. The body is designed to heal itself. Let's remember that. Everything we need was and is provided for by Mother Nature. No matter what your religion, race, creed, sexual orientation, nature is perfect, period, right? So going back to that. So again, the alkaline way is a way to restore absolutely health and health and vitality. I'm not saying it is for everybody, which is why I, enrolled into the Czech Academy and took on the studies as taught by Paul Chek, because I do believe in people also having bio-individuality. And quite frankly, if you're an Eskimo, does it make sense that you eat pineapples and mango? That's debatable, right? And so that's why it's important to not treat any one school of education as dogma. It's important to keep your mind open and take in as many different schools of thought, whether it be Dr. Morse. Yes, it is spelled Sebi. You can look him up on YouTube. Phenomenal. Dr. Morse, which is Morse, whether it be Paul Chap, all of whom are healers in their own right, and so many others. What is it? The Gershkin Institute in Mexico. They've also had success, I believe, if I'm not mispronouncing that name, in Mexico. So there are so many institutions, doctors, and places that you can go to for full-on healing. You just need to be, again, open and getting your information, your knowledge and your wisdom, which is your wisdom will be when you apply your information, from not the mainstream. Not the mainstream, because this segment is brought to you by, and that segment on CNN is brought to you by, can you fill in the blank? And this segment on Good Morning America brought to you by, and I'm not going to say their name, but it starts with a P and it ends with an R. And I don't want this to get flagged. So. All right, guys. So number 8, always use heat-stable fats and oils for cooking. Avoid using the polysaturated fats commonly recommended by the diet dictocrats indeed. And number 9, it is simply best to never eat from fast food restaurants. They use low-quality foods and fats, many of which are highly processed. Don't believe me? Well, I have many, many years in the culinary industry, specifically in New York City. And let me pose this question to you all, fam. Having worked for some of the top restaurants in New York City, and even having served a sitting president, I won't mention which one, I can tell you that any reputable restaurant will have quality produce brought in on a daily basis. You will see their trucks pull up, and you will see their food vendors bringing them highly curated quality produce, meat products, etc. Tell me the last time you saw one of these trucks or food purveyors or growers pull up to a McDonald's or a Burger King. So I don't know what it is that they're feeding you, but it certainly doesn't look like it is meat or vegetables, because I don't have an issue with either. If you want to eat meat or vegetables, everyone should be eating vegetables at the very least. But I'm saying you're not getting quality. You're getting quantity, and that will only take you so far. Number 10, one more thing I add to that. It is not required by law in the United States for a food grocer to tell you whether the meat has been cloned or not, whether they're selling you cloned meat. So again, the laws are not in your favor. You have to take the onus and the burden on yourself as far as finding out who is supplying your restaurant or who is supplying your favorite grocers with their food products. It's a heavy burden to carry, but it is absolutely worth it. You do not want to be dependent on the system, because the system only makes money when you're sick. You do not need to be an economist or a mathematician to see that that does not add up. How can I be equally invested in your well-being if I make loads of money off of you, a profit, when you're sick? Let it make sense. Let the math do the mathing, as they would say. Number 10, mothers must go out of their way to assure their children get adequate omega-3, essential fatty acids, whatever it takes. Feed your children organic food, period. Again, I said earlier, for those of you that missed it, that the British Soil Association did a 25-year comprehensive study on whether or not there was an actual difference in nutritional value in organic farming versus conventional. Not only did they find that organically grown, biodynamic farmed foods have exponentially more nutritional value, but they found that out of I think it was 130 some or 126 quote unquote scientific studies that supposedly said that there was no difference between conventional or organic farming, those studies were not even relevant. They wouldn't even be considered scientific studies by scientists, right? So, I mean, they're playing with us. They're legitimately playing with us. There is no reason for us to be victims in all of this. It just requires that we come together and we share our knowledge and our wisdom and our resources. I just shared with you guys the Weston A. Price Foundation as a great tool. I just told you guys, get off Google and use Brave. And if you have other search engines that you can refer me to, let me know. Let's share, because what we need is not centralized power and governance over us and our bodies and our autonomy. What we need is to come together and to hold ourselves accountable for the decisions that we make. All right, this next little bit I'm going to run through quickly because we've already been on for quite some time. I'm going to try and finish this off. This one is sugar. This one is going to really hit hard, guys, because this is truly the drug that most of us are having to basically rehabilitate from. And I don't use this term lightly, because if you go onto government websites, including the FDA, which is not even a government body, by the way, sugar is classified as a drug. It gives you the exact same high that heroin does. No cap, as the young ones would say these days. Let's run through sugar quickly. All right, so how much sugar are we consuming? As recently as 400 years ago, refined or simple sugars, with the exception of small amounts of honey, were not even available to man. We ate only naturally occurring whole foods that provided complex carbohydrates, which convert to energy relatively slowly when consumed as natural food sources. This is because they get tied up with the simultaneously occurring fats, proteins, and fiber. Producing simple or refined sugars, such as packaged white or brown sugar from sugar cane or sugar beets, required so much work to manufacture that only the rich could afford to buy them. About 100 years ago, the average yearly intake of simple sugars was only about 4 pounds per year per person. Today, the average American or Englishman, shout out to all of my peeps out in London and England, today, the average American or Englishman consumes about 150 to 170 pounds of sugar per year, and those in most industrialized nations are not far behind. It is said that for every American who eats only 5 pounds of sugar per year, then there's one who eats 295 pounds of sugar per year. This statistic is hard to deny, since about 60% of the US population is now considered to be overweight or obese. The effects of sugar. So, if sugar were nutritious, being addicted to it would be analogous to being addicted to carrots or some other food source that delivers adequate nutrition to be considered healthy. In reality, processed sugar is not only a drug, it is a poison. I read that to you again. In reality, processed sugar is not only a drug, it is in fact a poison. In 1957, Dr. William Coda Martin pondered, when is a food and when is it a poison? His working medical definition of poison was, listen carefully, any substance applied to the body, ingested or developed within the body, which causes or may cause disease. Physically, any substance which inhabits the activities of a catalyst, which is a minor substance, chemical or enzyme that activates a reaction. The dictionary provides an even broader definition for poison: to exert a harmful influence on or to pervert. Dr. Martin classified refined sugar as a poison because it has been depleted of all of its life force, vitamins, and minerals. When it is left pure, refined carbohydrates, what is left, rather, is pure refined carbohydrates. That means it has zero nutritional value. The body cannot effectively utilize this refined starch and carbohydrate unless the depleted proteins, vitamins, and minerals are present. But we know that they have been removed. That's what happens when you process. When we eat sugar in absence of the nutritional factors necessary to compensate for digestion, metabolism, and elimination, incomplete carbohydrate metabolism results. So again, 1 + 1 = 2, right? Pyruvic acid, excuse me if I mispronounce that, pyruvic acid, spelled Pyruvic, pyruvic acid accumulates in the brain and nervous system, and the abnormal sugars accumulate in the red blood cells. These metabolites interfere with the respiration of the cells. They simply cannot get sufficient oxygen to survive, and they don't function normally. In time, some of these cells will die. This interferes with the function of that part of the body, and it is the beginning of degenerative disease. Daily intake of sugar produces a continuously over-acidic condition. Consequently, minerals are required from body tissues such as bones and teeth in order to buffer the acidic environment and rectify the imbalance. In order to protect the blood, so much calcium is taken from the bones and teeth that decay and generally weakening will begin. Excess sugar eventually affects every organ in the body. So if you have osteoporosis or on the brink of osteoporosis, unlike what the quote unquote medical profession is trying to tell you, which is avoid dairy, which you don't need to do, especially if it's organic, grass-fed, humanely raised, etc., you should be instead avoiding sugar. That is what is stripping you. Remember, everything is looking to live and multiply, right? All cells are living to live and multiply. If you're drinking stripped water that is come from a tap and has been completely depleted of living bacteria, if you are consuming food that has been processed and is completely depleted of good and bad bacteria or enzymes that make it alive, what do you think those cells are going to do? They're going to take from you. If I'm ingesting water that comes from the tap, right? Just like you are ingesting sugar that's been processed and refined and stripped, the first thing they're going to do when they enter your body is take whatever nutrients they can to enliven themselves, because everything wants to be alive and procreate. That is nature. So if you are on the brinks of, or again, already suffering from osteoporosis, yes, absolutely great, increase your intake of your leafy greens. Maybe you avoid some dairy if you have a lactose intolerance or your, metabolic type is not conducive to you consuming dairy, or maybe not. What you definitively need to do, point blank and period, is avoid sugar. Highly processed refined sugar. That's what's stripping you of your calcium, right? That's what's stripping you of your minerals. So, and it just makes sense. Something that is depleted and, for lack of a better term, naked, is going to be taking from you in order to fortify itself. In the liver, excess sugar is stored in the form of glycogen. Since the liver's capacity is limited, a daily intake of refined sugar soon makes the liver expand. When the liver is filled to its maximum capacity, the excess glycogen is returned to the blood in the form of fatty acids. These fatty acids are then taken to every part of the body and stored as fat. And in the most inactive areas of the body, you're going to find this active stored, i.e. the belly, the buttocks, the breasts, and the thighs. When these areas are completely filled with fat, fatty acids are then distributed amongst active organs, such as the heart, liver, and kidneys. These organs begin to slow down. Finally, their tissues degenerate and turn to fat. The whole body is affected by their reduced ability, and abnormally high blood pressure results. The autonomic nervous system, the ANS, is affected because processed sugar is a powerful stimulator of the sympathetic branch of the nervous system. The circulatory and lymphatic systems are invaded, and the quality of the red blood cells begins to change. An overabundance of white blood cells occurs, and tissue creation is slowed down as a result. When you ingest processed sugars without adequate amounts of quality fats, proteins, vitamins, and enzymes, your blood sugar levels will become elevated. The body responds by releasing insulin, a hormone that rapidly reduces blood sugar levels. Unfortunately, the feedback mechanism that tells the brain that blood sugar has returned to normal is slow, commonly resulting in a blood sugar crash or hypoglycemic state. If not, the body must respond to this immediately. If not, your brain will run out of blood sugar to operate and you will go into a coma. This emergency situation results in the release of a powerful stress hormone, one of which is cortisol. In the midst of all of this, most people respond to hypoglycemic or low blood sugar state by drinking coffee or soda or eating something sweet. Meanwhile, cortisol has triggered the release of stored glycogen from the liver to quickly raise the blood sugar levels again. And this results in an inflow of sugar from the liver as well as from the sweetening that you've just ingested. And so that whole process, which is a cycle, begins once again. Many live their lives on this roller coaster ride all day, every day. And this creates a big problem because after a while, your body can become insensitive to insulin. The first sign being an accumulation of fat around the middle, giving your midsection an apple-like appearance. This results in what is commonly called Syndrome X, and it is the first major step toward becoming diabetic. The constant hormonal roller coaster rides caused by the typical sugar-laden food diet overworks the adrenal glands. They finally become exhausted from overproducing cortisol, and when the hormonal system becomes disturbed and unbalanced due to the stress of eating processed sugars, numerous other pathological conditions soon manifest, i.e. degenerative diseases, allergies, obesity, alcoholism. Are you guys paying attention? Drug addiction, depression, and behavioral problems can all stem from overconsumption of overprocessed, highly refined sugars. Our ability to resist disease progressively decreases as processed sugars displace the nutrient-dense foods we were designed to thrive on. The chances of acquiring one of the following diseases or side effects rockets. Here we go. Kidney disease, liver disease, atherosclerosis, coronary heart disease, attention deficit disorder, ADD, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. Behavioral problems, and how many people are on drugs due to behavioral problems, including kids and young people on the spectrum or that have been diagnosed with ADD. Why would they tell you to stop consuming refined, simple sugars when they can just prescribe you something and make some money off of it? And I just said something about this in one of my recent vlogs whilst overseas, that I find it really interesting that we have accepted as a society even being given medication for behavioral modifications rather than actually getting the mental help that we need to work through or see through whatever caused that pain. Because if we're taking medication for things that aren't a medical problem but are a behavioral problem, then at what point are we also going to accept taking medication for financial problems? Is that a stretch? Taking medicine for relationship problems. Is that a stretch? Maybe taking medication for career and professional problems. Is that a stretch? Because we've already accepted taking medication for behavioral problems. Not medicine for medical problems, but medicine for behavioral problems. I'm hoping that you can see just how ludicrous the situation has become, and we have allowed it to become this way. We are equally to blame. Violent tendencies also related to an overabundance of exposure or intake of simple sugars, overgrowth of candida, yeast, and fungi, cancers. I agree, Ariane, saying it is quite frightening, isn't it? 100% agree there. Cancers, tumors are enormous sugar absorbers. They need sugar to live off of. Bone loss, osteoporosis, we've just covered this. Tooth decay, food intolerance, numerous psychological disorders such as schizophrenia. I used to run a group home where I was taking care of people on schizophrenia, and I kept asking the governing body, what could we do to help improve their nutrition and diet? And they were simply not interested. And I did this for almost a decade. Their only requirements was that I serve them food, whether it be hamburgers or hot dogs. They didn't care, and observed that they were taking their medication. They were more concerned that I observed that they take their medicine to keep them quote unquote stable than to actually work through whatever may have caused the schizophrenia, the psychic break, and how we could maybe restore it and reverse it. And I can't tell you how many times I went against the system and was just tired of feeling like I was butting my head against the wall, that I eventually gave up the group home and just removed myself from that very toxic situation. Continuing on, neurological disorders and associated pain syndromes, colon cancers, and diseases of malnutrition. So that's quite a spectrum, right? So that means that there's a lot that we could avoid in terms of health issues if we just stop consuming rubbish. The other thing I want to tell you all yet is that if you're using the old age, or the myth of, well, genetics also plays a part of it, sure, I'll give you that as a, again, licensed, educated, certified holistic practitioner. But I will give you this analogy. It was actually given to us by Paul Chek. Your genetics are the gun. However, whether or not you load the gun is based on your behavioral choices. Because nurture is only one side of it. That's not the whole picture. Just like there are always two sides, yang and a yin, and plus and a minus, a positive and a negative charge, a feminine and a masculine energy. It is not the whole picture. There's always going to be yin and yang, yes and no, hot and cold. So your genetics are one part of it, but your behavioral modifications, choices rather, your choices are just as important, and some would say, many would say, including myself, more important than the genetics that you've been given. So, and that's coming from someone that studies this day in and out. Aspartame, let's talk about it, shall we? Because America and Canada are big on this, okay? And this right here, this is poison number one. Aspartame has resulted in more complaints to the FDA. Remember, the same people that were looking out for us the last 3 years? The same governing body, they're not even governing it, but okay, the same entity has resulted in more complaints to the FDA due to side effects than any food additive ever approved in FDA history. Well, the one thing we can say about the FDA is that they are consistent, because the product that they were promoting for the last 2.5 years as safe and effective also has had more adverse effects than any other that they've approved, okay? Any other. And so far, the tally, if you've been looking at the number of adverse effects from that the FDA approved 2 years ago, is 770. That's not the number of complaints, fam. No, the number of complaints is in the hundreds of thousands. I'm telling you, these side effects, the negative side effects from this now, the tally is up to 770. So the one thing that we can say about the FDA is that they are consistently not giving two F's about us. Point blank and the period. Artificial sweeteners tell your taste buds that sweet stuff has arrived, which to the brain means nutrition has arrived, right? Because our ancestors, when they were eating sweet things, they were things like fruit, avocados and berries and bananas, burro bananas and what have you, right? That equaled nutrition. Mangoes and papaya, which are so amazing and anti-inflammatory, that equals nutrition. And that is the DNA that which we've come from. Our DNA doesn't know about this foo-la-la that's going on with processed white stripped sugar that has zero nutritional value. So when your body tastes sweet, it automatically thinks, because of the DNA that runs right through here, through your veins, and through the ancestors that came before you, that you're giving your body something healthy, okay? Instead, you're just fooling your brain. When artificially sweetened drinks or food reaches the small intestine, the receptors, though, find no nutrition, and they are puzzled. They're like, huh? But for millennia, whenever we've had something sweet go through us, it's had nutritional value. Not so, not when man got involved and decided they're going to do some foo-la-la in the science lab and create something that tastes sweet, but actually gives you zero benefit. We've been tricked. There's no nutrition here, says the body. The apistat, the part of your brain that triggers satiety? Is it satiety? Help me out. Sends the message to keep eating. To keep eating, because we need nutrition to help process all this fake food and run your body. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the ways that we ended up with fat, starving people. Across the world today, artificial sweeteners have been found by researchers to be neurotoxins that damage the brain and the nervous system. And yet the FDA tells you it's safe and effective, and it's available at grocery stores and coffee shops everywhere. Sugar alternatives, honey. Use only unprocessed, unfiltered raw honey. You can't miss it because it has chunks of beeswax in it. Stevia. Stevia is a herb and it is about 1,000 times sweeter than sugar. Additionally, stevia is known to assist in balancing blood sugar levels, making it ideal for anyone coming off of caffeinated beverages or weaning themselves off of sweets. Do not use the white stevia, again, that you find in common, we'll call them coffee shops, but as somebody who once owned a coffee shop in Brooklyn and a very reputable one at that, a third wave coffee shop, these major chains are not overly impressive to me, but one particular chain, I guess the biggest one in America, you know who they are. They come out of Seattle, Washington, now carries stevia, but it's the white stuff. So again, it's been starved. Recap, guys, if you put something that's been processed and refined and all of the nutrition and life force has been taken out of it, and then you put it into your body, what happens? Recap. This is quiz time. I told you guys this earlier. Remember, I'm giving you all the codes. What happens when you put something in that's been starved or stripped and is now naked is it starts to take away from you. The minute you ingest it into your tongue, whether it be naked water or sugar that's been stripped to nothing, it starts to take nutrition from you, and it starts in the mouth, which means it begins to strip not only from the saliva, but from your teeth. Your teeth are bones. They are part of your skeletal system. You need them for support. I'm giving you guys all the codes. Fruit. Use in-season fruit or dried fruits to sweeten foods. It's a good idea to rehydrate dried fruits and berries by soaking them for 8 to 12 hours before using them. Then bring them to a flash boil to kill any unfriendly bacteria, parasites, or insect eggs that may have been laid on them during the drying process. Use only unsulfured dried fruits. Below ground vegetables, by adding properly cooked or when possible raw ground vegetables, you often get a beautiful natural sweetness to salads and other foods. For example, an organic sweet potato, shredded raw carrots, or beets are quite sweet and make nice additions to salads and sandwiches. Turbinado sugar and sukinat. These are two acceptable forms of sugar. They are minimally processed and raw. Raw date sugar is also acceptable, but also sugar is sugar, so consume in moderation. Before I sum this up, I want to give you a couple of other resources. Coconut sugar. Trader Joe's has excellent coconut sugar. Also, Trader Joe's also sells raw organic date sugar. It's like this big and maybe a couple of dollars, so worth it. So again, always in moderation, right? You don't ever need to overdo it. Anything in overconsumption of anything is bad for you, even water, your H2O. So always be aware of what you're consuming and then consume the best of the best that you can get. You are that Maserati that you've been wanting. You are that Maybach. You are that Ferrari, okay? You don't need to worry about that vessel which you want to buy for $250,000 because this vessel right here that you are living in is priceless. So please take care of it. All right, to summarize, checkpoints on becoming a sugar detective. Read your labels. Food manufacturers know that there is an increased awareness with regard to the negative effects of sugar. To throw you off, they use big words to hide total sugar content. For example, instead of listing sugar as the first or second ingredient on the list, the order in the listing indicates relative quantity. They include words like sucrose and maltose and dextrose and fructose and galactose and glucose again, and arabinose and ribose and xylose and deoxyribose and lactose and trehalose and the like. Basically anything that ends with an OSE is a sugar. So, and you'll see many of these terms used on these labels to throw you off your scent. Sugar is by far the greatest source of calories. If you're concerned about calorie counting, which you should not be, I'll get into that another time. Beware of the term natural. A natural sugar is still a sugar. So again, in modification, right? You must be aware of how much sugar you are consuming, particularly my battery is low. Particularly with regard to your primal pattern diet type. If you do not know your primal pattern type or your metabolic type, reach out to me or another licensed holistic practitioner, and we can sort that out for you. Again, my deets are in the bio. You can reach out to me by direct message, etc. Last but not least, point number 3, avoid all sweet drinks, including juices that are not freshly juiced. The biggest mistake people make, particularly parents, is that they're falling for the marketing hype from juice manufacturers. They want you to think that fresh orange juice is actually good for you. If you read the package, you'll see from concentrate, which could easily be translated, which could easily mean from syrup, really and truly. can be translated to be from syrup. When it is from concentrate, it is from syrup. Let me give you guys an example. Yeah, you can go to Whole Foods today, at least in the DMV area where I'm at, and you can get organic orange juice for $5, or you can get organic fresh pressed juice for $17, which is absurd. But the one that's $17 is fresh pressed organic juice that they do in store every day. You can see the machine at Whole Foods. Not that I'm advocating for Whole Foods. We know who owns them, and that's an issue as well. Just giving you an example. Whereas the $5 organic orange juice, if you look at that, it is from concentrate. There's a reason why one is 5 and one is 17. Unfortunately, you're going to get what you paid for. And again, are you prepared to make that investment? Are you going to put the best quality oil in your engine, the best quality petroleum in your engine? I sure hope so. All right, guys, this has been long enough. I hope that you've enjoyed and taken something from it. If you need health coaching, I'm available. If you need corrective exercise coaching, I'm available. I'm also a licensed yoga teacher with over 800 hours of yoga training that I've meshed now with my with my Chap training. So understanding biomechanics of the body and how to move. That means that you get more out of your practice with me. I'm available for corporate hire or private hire. You know how to reach out to me. Thank you all for joining me. Until next time, I sign off. Get free and stay free. Bye.